Hello, hello. Happy Saturday morning. I am here on episode 2 of the Biblio Files, and today's guest, we have the Bald Booktuber.
Hello.
And he is my first guest. I did like a trial Q&A of this series just to test everything out. I have a long list of guests that I would love to speak to, but when I was looking at the list, I knew that the Bald Booktuber had to be my first one because Scott is my in real life friend.
That's right.
And Scott actually introduced me to the whole booktube world and kind of bookish social media in general, because we were in a book club and we were talking to some different people. And there was someone there named Hector who said that he loved taking pictures of books and talking with people about books. And I was like, I didn't know this world existed. Mm-hmm. And so it was this bookish conversation. And then Scott said he was starting a booktube channel. And I was like, what an inspiration. And so Scott is the inspiration behind me starting my own. So
very nice of you to say. A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, especially as the first guest. It means a lot to me. So always fun to talk to you about books, my friend. I can't wait to get started.
Me too. Well, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Bald Booktuber, what you talk about on your channel, what types of videos you do, what folks can expect from your channel?
Yeah, well, when I make videos, it's been a little bit of a hiatus, but when I make videos, a lot of it is TBRs and wrap-ups. I tend to read a ton of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi, mix in some thrillers, a little bit of nonfiction here and there, and I like to talk about not only the books, but also the audio narrations for those books, because I am a passionate audiobooker, as I know you are. So I know for both of us, the narration can make or break a book. So it's important to me that people know what they're getting into, know whether it's going to be good, bad, or otherwise. Because whether they're getting it from the library, they're buying it from Audible, wherever they're getting it from, you want to have good time and money for, what you're doing. So, so I probably do more audio related content than most booktubers. Some will say I audioed this and don't really get into the details, but I like to talk about what I liked about the narrators, who my favorite narrators are, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think your videos really give me the perspective to pay attention to who the narrator is. And I think you talk about why you liked that narrator. And so now I'm triggered when I'm listening to these to look out for those inflections or the different accents they do and the different pacing. And so that's been really nice. So
you just completed First Law. Did you listen to my favorite narrator of all time, Stephen Pacey?
You know what? I did an immersive read. So I was reading it and listening to it at the same time. Excellent. And wow, it added so much to the story, the different accents. So there's a character that's missing his front teeth.
Indeed.
And how the narrator read his dialogue or even his inner monologue added so much. It had a little bit of a lisp to it along with an accent. And everyone had a very distinct voice. So
if you get a chance to watch it, it's about a 45-minute to an hour-long interview between Pacey and Abercrombie. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
No.
But they go into the whole process of Pacey talks about what it's like in the booth doing audiobooks for the series. And it's so good. You should check it out.
I definitely will. Yeah, that'd be one I'd be interested in seeing. So
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, are you ready for the hard-hitting questions, Scott?
I'll do my best. Yeah, I hope I got your list of what for sure we're going to get. And I'm like, these are hard.
I know.
And then I don't know the mystery questions, so I'm sure
I know. All right. So for those just joining, how we're going to approach this is I have 10 questions for Scott about some of his favorites, some of his reading habits, get to know him a little bit as a bookworm.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go into 5 bookish would you rather questions that Scott has never seen before. So hopefully those will be a little bit fun. And feel free, everyone that's watching the live, to jump into the comments and add questions you may have for either one of us. Although Scott's the one on the hot seat, so let's pick on him. Yeah, or in the comments, you can answer these questions yourselves, because it'll be really fun to see what everyone is up to. So there's going to be 3. The first 3 questions are relatively simple. I'm going to ease you into this a little bit before we challenge you too much. What are you reading right now?
Yeah, well, I think this, if you haven't read it, I think it's something you would really enjoy. It's East of Eden by John Steinbeck, which is an author and a book I've wanted to get to for a really long time. It's sort of well, at the time it was written, somewhat modern day, but it's, late 1800s, early 1900s is the time frame, sort of a present day Cain and Abel type of deal, and it's multi-generational. I'm about 2/3 in. And I'm really, really liking it. I'm doing immersive. I forget the narrator's name, but I'm enjoying his narration of the story. I will definitely be reading more Steinbeck. So I have Of Mice and Men and Grapes of Wrath planned, maybe Tortilla Flats. So I don't read as many classics as I should, and this was one that, for whatever reason, just seemed like something I'd be into, and it way is. So I'm really, really liking it. How about you?
Is it easy? How is it to read, right? So classics can be kind of intimidating because of the language. The language can be harder to read. So how are you finding the readability of it?
Super readable. The prose are gorgeous. They flow wonderfully. It's poetic. Not hard at all to visualize and understand what's going on. Some of the characters are rotten scoundrel, which I love, so that's good. There is a female character in it that is maybe one of the more evil depictions of a person I've ever seen in literature. Which is great. Yeah, I'm really digging it. He won a Pulitzer Prize, and that was not accidentally. He is a amazingly gifted and talented wordsmith. So good.
Okay. Are you going to do a book review video on it? Can we expect that from your channel?
I'll do my best. I'm so bad at book reviews because it's like book good, and that's about the extent of valuable I have to say. I've got like 3 book reviews on my channel, and they're all awful. So I will do my best. I think it is the type of book more people should read. If they are familiar with the biblical stories, that will add a component to it. Even if they're not, there are ways that he summarizes it without info dumping that make it worthwhile. I don't think that it is particularly preachy, like it's not trying to sell anyone on a particular viewpoint or religion or anything. It's just follow these characters generationally and see where they land. It's really, really good. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Awesome. Oh, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. Good variety in your reading.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, you were asking what I'm reading. I am trying the Broken Earth trilogy. Yeah. So I'm going to start book 2, The Obelisk Gate.
Mm-hmm.
I had to Google what an obelisk was and look at visuals because the storyline where they mentioned that, I'm like, I cannot visualize it. But I'm excited to start book 2 this weekend.
It's like a pyramid type of shape or something, right? No.
It's like a tower.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but if they're in the sky, like in the book, I don't understand how this is going, but it's sci-fi. I'm just going to roll with it. And
I've not read any Jemison. I've heard mixed things, which is okay with me. I like books that aren't universally loved or hated necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't read any of her stuff. I do know that there's a fair amount of second person scattered throughout, which is not something I would look forward to reading, but maybe she uses it in a way that wouldn't hurt my eyes and ears. Who knows?
It's a good way to check it out, to see, like, it's unique, right? It stands out. So I like that.
For sure.
All right, let's go to the next question. What is your most read genre and subgenre?
Yeah, this one's super easy. I've been reading fantasy since I was a little kid. And it's by far my most read. Probably epic fantasy within the fantasy genre is the most subgenre, but I also love urban fantasy. I like grimdark fantasy. If it's fantasy, I tend to enjoy it as long as it's not like fantasy romance. That's not my deal. Which, no judgment, no judgment. It's not my thing. But I like fantasy where there are clear delineations of good and bad. I also like fantasy where there's a lot of gray morality. So my favorite series is Song of Ice and Fire. First Law is another favorite series. Neither one of those has clear protagonists, and that's by design. So I like that. I think that more matches reality in some ways than someone is inherently good because the story needs them to be. But
breaking my Disney kid heart. I like when
I know you're into happy endings, which is fine. I'm okay with that as well. But I think some of my favorite endings are bittersweet in some way, where even if the characters get what they want and we're happy they got what they want, there's still some element of this isn't entirely happy or entirely.
There's a cost to it.
Yeah.
A consequence or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that makes it more impactful and gives it so much more dimension than just, a flat story with a happy ending. So I'll give you that one. My Disney kid heart will give you a break.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the last, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fans. You could argue that that's an entirely happy ending, I suppose. But it doesn't delve any deeper into what happens after that happy ending, which I think is maybe just as interesting as the ending itself. Joanna's here. What's up?
Hi, Joanna. Thanks for stopping by to say hi.
Joanna is supposed to be reading East of Eden with me, and I'm sure she will at some point. She's going to love it.
Oh, has she not started it yet?
She's waiting on library holds, which is understandable.
Yep. See, and Joanna, I'm trying to convince Scott that he needs to do a book review video, but maybe you guys can do like a live discussion on it. That's like a book review between the two of you. That'd be interesting.
I'm hoping so. It's me and her and RJ reads. I was supposed to start reading it. I don't know if he did. And Kyle from Read by Kyle. And Alex Tall Guy was supposed to read it too, but I think his July is too stacked. So I don't think he's
that happens.
Yeah, waiting on Libya. That's right. I understand. I think the Kindle version is under $1, so I would still pick it up if it were me. But that's all right.
What? Latina Geek Girl, there is a Wheel of Time convention in Ohio?
I mean, that's not surprising. It's a massive fan base. I don't know if that's like the existing one they've been doing for years or not. I like Wheel of Time a lot. It's not my favorite thing, but I'm happy that I read it. I read it back right in the heart of the pandemic. I read that and Stormlight Archive in late 2020. So
Stormlight Archive seems like a good pandemic read just because they're such substantially long books. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to when you get to it. I think you'll like it. We will see. I'm going to do a reread of it next year. So let me know if you want to reread them together, because I have forgotten a lot and I need to get refreshed for. He's given the name for the 5th one, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Somebody in the comments will tell us what the 5th one's called.
Yeah. Latina Geek Girl, have you read The Wheel of Time? I feel like you've read everything because you're always giving me all the recommendations, but I didn't know. I don't think we've talked about Wheel of Time. Latina Geek Girl is my in real life friend as well, and she actually authored these books sitting back here on my shelf called the Merry Maids trilogy. A badass female main character. It's a fantasy series. So she gives me a lot of good recommendations all the time.
Love it. That's very cool.
She's read the first and the show.
Okay. The show is wildly different from the books, as you would see. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings if they love the show, but it really, really got rough towards the end of that first season for me. So let's see. Rogue is here. What's up, sir? He pops into my live streams a lot.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's go to question number 3. Scott, what is a favorite book of all time?
Yeah, a favorite and not necessarily the favorite.
Because it's hard to pick just one. I know that's the impossible. It's like picking a favorite child. So
yeah, I'm still, I think, gonna go with my actual favorite. And you have made me happy by getting a nice hardcover version of it while thrift shopping, and that is Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. I read it for the first time in high school. I think I've read it 3 or 4 times. The Francisco d'Anconia stuff, where he's talking about money and the value of money, is some of my favorite stuff in literature. I really like that. I like Hank Rudin's character a lot. Dagny, I think, is a very interesting protagonist. It isn't going to land for everyone, especially people that, for whatever reason, hate capitalism, which is a growing sentiment, apparently, because I'm seeing it more and more in movies and other media. But for those of us that love capitalism, it is great. It also will not land for people that, for whatever reason, may be upset that she was an atheist and tends to make her characters atheists. I personally am not. I don't share that view, but I also tend to think it's important for me to understand different viewpoints. So that has never turned me off from the book or from her other works. I'm also a huge Fountainhead fan. I think that's a great book. That was the first one I read of hers. And some of her nonfiction I've read and liked. Romantic Manifesto is one of my favorite books as well. So just in general, I like Ayn Rand a lot. She gets a little rambly. She probably needed a better editor. Some of her speeches go on longer than they needed to, and the book is probably about 300 pages too long, but that's okay.
I can agree with that. I find it interesting. I read it. I read Atlas Shrugged. Oh gosh, maybe 2015. Like pretty early in my reading journey as an adult, and it was so impactful. It was such an impactful read, and then I found out how controversial it was, and I didn't understand. Because you said something that I definitely agree with. I don't feel you have to share the same viewpoint with a book or an author or the characters in order to enjoy a book. I mean, many times one of the benefits of reading is getting those different perspectives. So I always thought it was very interesting how controversial Atlas Shrugged was in Ayn Rand. So very interesting answer. Very cool.
Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot because I already struggle with viewership. So the last thing I need is people canceling me. So hopefully I'm not going to screw up your video here. I don't want to screw up your video either. So hopefully nobody hates you for this.
I know you say it on my live stream so that you don't get. I think we set up this live show to stream on both of our channels. So Scott is taking a risk.
No risk. I think in general, the people that would watch either of our channels are fairly open-minded. So I don't foresee that being a problem. Yeah. But yeah, for whatever reason, there's this growing sentiment, and just like with anything, there's going to be the haves and the have-nots. I think there's this growing sentiment among especially younger people that are reading these stories that it's inherently evil to make money for goods and services, and I don't share that sentiment, but again, I can respect people's viewpoints. So yeah, all right, we love you too, Theo.
Yeah. Latina Geek Girl wants to know, have you read any Patricia McKillip?
I have not. I have heard the name. I don't know her catalog well, but it is a name that pops up a lot when I'm researching female fantasy authors to read. So at some point, I'd like to. I have some other people on the list that I want to get to first. But yeah, it's a name that comes with a high amount of prestige. So at some point, probably.
Awesome. All right. Well, those are the 3 get to know you questions.
Oh, good. I survived.
All right. Those are the easy ones. Now we're going to get into the tough questions.
Yeah, especially number 4. I have thought long and hard about. You had a great answer, and I don't have a great answer. It's a great question, deserving a great answer. So here's, I think, what I tend to look at books based more on what they have that I want than to lament this doesn't have something that I wanted. But one thing that I think is I don't know if you call it a trope or what, that's often missing is platonic friendship between main characters within a book. Often, regardless of the gender or the sexuality or anything else, often it will become a romantic will they, won't they type of situation, regardless of genre, and that's fine. But I think there is also a place for just platonic friendship between 2 people and having it portrayed well on the page. And I think that movies and TV could benefit from that as well. So probably that's my answer. I don't know that it's a good one, but it's one that I don't see as often as I maybe would like to.
I think it's a fantastic answer. I read a nonfiction book last year called Ace. and it was
yeah.
about asexuality. And it really changed my perspective, and it really called out how in a lot of media, there's just so much pressure about those romantic relationships. And as a romance reader, I like a romantic subplot in a lot of books, but I also 120% agree with you that there should be more of an emphasis and importance on those platonic relationships. And that's something that I really enjoy in like a found family situation, because a lot of those platonic friendships, usually there's still like a romance going on in addition to it. But reading that Ace book really made me realize, wow, like there is romance in everything, or that tension, that will they won't they tension you mentioned. So I think that's a great answer.
Well, thanks. All right. All
right. Scott, you didn't you recently reread? I don't know what that is.
That's The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker. It's book one of The Prince of Nothing. And I did recently reread it. I first read it when it came out in 2009, so I remembered very little about it. Again, it's a lot of nihilism and this kind of stuff that you may not be into, Jack. I'm not sure. But it is epic fantasy. It is religious fantasy, political maneuverings. Most of the first book is about a holy war and the different factions that are trying to, quote unquote, use that holy war to their own ends, which I think is pretty fascinating. It's very philosophical in nature. The author, R. Scott Baker, has a philosophy background. He was a professor of philosophy, so it's right up my alley. I haven't gone further in the series yet, but that's one of my big rock plans for this year. So hopefully we'll see if I can get to it this month. But I plan to continue with The Warrior Prophet, which I know is Joanna's favorite in the series, and I've heard other people say the same. So there's the initial trilogy, The Prince of Nothing, and then there's the Aspect Emperor Quartet after that. And I hope to get all of it done this year. We'll see. The whole overarching series is called the second Apocalypse. So,
oh, okay. There's always books to add to that TBR.
Never it is another one where the writing is very, very dense. He writes beautifully, but also it can be a little impenetrable at times. For myself and others have mentioned this. I did really enjoy it, but I didn't go through it quickly. I think it took me like a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, for that first book, from the end of June bleeding in. And that was on a reread, so I can't even imagine what we have in store from here on out. So, but yes, the short answer is yes. I did recently reread.
Yes, Rogue. Yes. Rekindled Reader says yes. Platonic friendships, deeply moving bromances. Aww.
You're the man, Theo. Yeah, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser is another one that I really want to get to. That is early 20th century, I believe, fantasy. It's kind of the precursor to things like The Lies of Locke Lamora. I can pretty much assure that Lynch was a massive fan of the author whose name is escaping me right now, but it's Fritz Leiber is the author. So I need to go in and read those. There are a lot of shorter type of novellas and novels. I know Liam here is a massive fan of Leiber, so I really want to get to that, but have not yet. Haven't made it a point to yet. But I also do love romance.
Yeah. It's a good answer. We need more bromances.
That's right.
More bromances. All right. What is a book that made you fall in love with reading?
Yeah, I think for this one, the simplest answer is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I got the box set of Narnia when I was little kids, 8 or 9, something like that. My aunt gave it to me. I still have that box set today, much, much older now. And I haven't reread Narnia for a while. It's been a few years, but it's a series I revisit from time to time. And that was really the one that made me fall in love with fantasy genre and with reading in general.
Yeah, that one's full of magic. So how do you think the movies compare?
I actually didn't hate the movies. I thought they were fine. I didn't do it like a scene by scene comparison or see what was in one and not the other. Especially the first movie I thought was relatively well done. it's obviously not a massive, big budget type of fantasy movie, but I thought it captured the spirit and the essence of C.S. Lewis well enough. It's something I would recommend to people.
Yeah, it was very visual. I like both the book and the movies, and it's a really good answer that you have, because it's a great representation of fantasy and how reading can transport you to another world.
Yeah.
So I can see how that made you fall in love with reading.
Good answer, Theo. Lies of Loch Lamora. Great.
I know. And Scott, you made me read Lies of Loch Lamora, so it's great that this book comes up. Locke and John.
Yeah, Locke and John, fantastic. I really, really love John's character. He's like this big teddy bear dude, but don't set him off, which is one of my favorite types of characters. So, yeah, that's a series I want to revisit here at some point soon. Another series where I love the audiobooks. I think they're exceptionally well done. But I'm waiting to see. He's supposed to be having some novellas coming out soon. We'll see. He struggles with a lot of mental health issues that have delayed things from coming out. And one of the biggest issues he has is he doesn't want to show his writing to anybody. So he says he's had stuff finished for a while, but it stayed like it. I guess a similarity to stage fright. He doesn't want anyone to see it. So
that's too bad. It's understandable, but it's too bad.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is that all the further you've gotten? Yeah, I really, really love Red Seas Under Red Skies and The Republic of Thieves. I think they're both great.
I feel like I need to reread it. I feel like I read The Lies of Loch Lamora very early in my fantasy journey. When I did the video, I actually got recommendations from you and Rekindled Reader for fantasy books to try. And I think I need to retry it now that I'm a more seasoned fantasy reader. There were some, you were saying that you like when there's like a trade-off to the happy ending. The trade-off was really strong in this one, and it bugged me. So it swung too much in that direction for me at the time.
That's fair.
So yeah, that's.
I think a lot of people don't like Mike from Mike's Book Reviews doesn't connect with the story because of the flashback presentation.
I loved it.
I like that too. So I remember when the book came out, I read it relatively quickly after it came out, and it was basically marketed as if you were to cross Game of Thrones with Ocean's 11. And it's a lot more similar to Ocean's 11 than Game of Thrones, but the concept is there where it's not necessarily a linear telling. So it'll go a little bit in the current storyline, and then it'll say, oh, but wait, you didn't see this off screen and flashback to that. I love that, but I know a lot of people get annoyed with it for whatever reason.
See, I liked it. I liked it both. I love a good heist story. And so that's when you were pitching this book to me, that's really what drew me to it. It was the fact that it was a heist story. And I said that I wanted to read about a arrogant, conceited, yet lovable main character who's just great at what they do. Like maybe they're really sarcastic. And you could hate them, but they're just brilliant. And I wanted like a Hercule Poirot character, but in a different, like a fantasy setting. And you delivered. You nailed that recommendation. So
I try.
Relatable. Is that to the trade-off part, Latina Geek Girl? Because I feel like you understand my Disney kid heart wanting a happily ever after. All right. So next question. Who is a character that you most relate to and why?
Yeah, this is also hard for me because typically the characters I love are ones that are nothing like me. I like to be transported, and I like to see how others would react that are completely different than me. I do have an answer, and for people that haven't seen the show or read the books, they probably won't understand, but Samwell Tarly in the Song of Ice and Fire universe is probably who I relate to the most. Super nerdy kid. He would always rather be reading a book than doing literally anything else. And he's got loyalty and very little charm or courage to go with it. So he wants to do the best that he can, but often either because he doubts himself or otherwise has a hard time moving forward without being nudged. So in many, many ways, Samwell Tarly is someone that I relate to, which maybe doesn't make me look the best, but I love the growth of his character throughout the series. I think the actor that played him in the show was exceptional in delivering the exact image of what I felt he was. So yeah, if I had to pick one character I relate to, he isn't necessarily my favorite character. He's someone I like a lot, but he's someone that I certainly understand where he is coming from. We'll just say it that way.
And we meet him in the first book, right? A Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
So,
he has a bigger part throughout the series, but yeah, he goes to Castle Black in Game of Thrones.
okay. So I'm on book 2 in the series. And so when we met Sam in book 1, he's such like a sweet cinnamon roll character that needs to be protected at all costs.
Mhm.
And I'm reading this and I'm like, I know, because I haven't seen the show. So I don't know what happens, but I know that A Song of Ice and Fire is known for the fact that your favorite characters don't live. And so I'm just like, I don't know if I can continue right now because I don't know what's going to happen to Sam, and I need him to be protected. So
Yeah.
I don't spoil it for me.
I
But yeah, I
won't.
really don't know what happens to him, and I'm scared. I'm scared to continue because I want him to stay. I want him to make it.
I'll say this, which isn't a spoiler, I don't think, about the series. I think that unfairly it has this reputation as just everybody dies, and you can never count on anyone being able to follow them or whatever. I think in reality, George uses death to an effect. Like, you feel every single death, maybe not every single one, but of the characters that you get invested in, you feel their death, you understand the importance, that kind of stuff, and that's all intentionally done. That's how he sets about to do it. There's no wasted space as far as that goes. But I won't say more than that because I don't want to spoil the story for you or anybody else that hasn't read it. It is, again, my favorite. But yeah, that's kind of how death. It feels like real life death, if for better or worse. You find, or I find myself mourning the characters. I find myself wondering and wishing if things had played out differently, what would have happened, that kind of stuff. So,
because you're so emotionally connected to them, right? Like, you build this relationship with them, and so you're right. It's kind of like a real death because you miss them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I got to continue in that series. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're not loving it, but also I think it is the type of book and series that benefits from talking about it after having read it. I think that no matter who it is, they're not going to catch everything that first pass. As far as series that benefit from rereading, it might be towards the top of the list for me, because once you understand who all the players are, who all the factions are, all the different houses, you have to dedicate no brain space to any of that, and you can just enjoy the through line of the story. And that's what makes the first book hard for some people to get into. Crazy amount of characters, this crazy cast, and that's true for a lot of fantasy, but it's especially true, I think, for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you're right. I'll keep going, I promise. And then I'll talk to you about it, and I'll watch all the live shows because I need to.
I'll be here. Yeah.
All right. So question number 7, and I would love to see some responses from folks watching, because I'm curious what everyone has to say on this. So please weigh in. Number 7, what is your least favorite thing in books?
Yeah, I struggle with this again as well. I don't, like, I'm not the type of person that something will bother me in a book and it'll ruin the whole book for me. I tend to look through the lens of, here were the 20 things I liked. And if there's 7 things I hated, I'm still like, well, 20 is more than 7. So I ended up liking the book a lot. But I think probably insta-love may have to be towards the top of the list. There are some plot lines in Wheel of Time that feature some insta-love. There are, I mean, really any book or series, there's going to be a little bit of that, but it just isn't realistic from my lens, I guess. I don't think that's how love works. And I can be, it can be insta-love romantically. It can even be insta-love of the platonic kind we're talking about, where just immediately people were like, you're my soulmate. And that, they don't say the words, but like, that's what they're thinking. And it's like, that just doesn't play true to what I think of things. I think that relationships are built over time and this kind of stuff, and maybe that's a fault with me and not a fault with the authors, but it is something that irritates me a little bit, and probably is my least favorite.
I don't think it's a fault with you. I'd have to agree with you because it's attraction at first sight. That's what it is. It's not love at first sight. You know, and it's whenever I watch like reality TV and like those dating shows and everything, you can't say you love someone until you see how they respond to stress, how they respond to jealousy, how they treat you when you're not at your best, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think those are the types of things and experiences that lead to love. So represented in books as like love at first sight or soulmates after like a couple weeks it kind of takes you out of the story because it's so unbelievable.
Yeah, there's a relationship in Wheel of Time, especially, that you grow to love or I did grow to love their relationship and really like these people belong together. But they're just out of the blue, out of nowhere in the first book, like instantly they're bound to be together forever. And it just like you have to reread the series to even understand why that happened, because it must have happened off the page. And yeah, it just didn't land well for me. And that's sort of the lens I look through any instant love through, is that one situation in Wheel of Time that still bothers me. So
yep, I can see that. Latina geek girl does not like misunderstand. That is such a huge one, and it gives me so much anxiety. I think especially if we're with a main character that has this misunderstanding or like has something she needs to communicate, I'm saying she, but he or she has, and she's just not talking about it. I scream at the pages, just talk to them. Just talk to them already. That's a really frustrating one.
Thankfully, this one doesn't bother me that much because I'm a massive Robin Hobb fan, and this shows up a lot. And mostly it's because Fitz is an idiot, and that's really what it boils down to. So he grows as a character throughout the series, but almost without exception, he's talking about one thing and whoever he's talking to is talking about something else, and they just can't get together and figure out what's going on. So this is a common theme throughout Realm of the Elderlings, and if this were a big problem for me, I would not have that so high on my list of series that I love.
That shocks me. But I wonder, because this is a common trope in like romance books or romance storylines. And so that's one area where it really bugs me too. But I mean, it happens everywhere in all genres.
For sure.
But particularly in romance, where it's like it's all based on a relationship. It's all based on communication and understanding each other. It's extra frustrating.
Yeah. I think she does it in a way that is satisfying, but it still irks a lot of people. Like a lot of people are like, come on, like they just need to sort it out and communicate with each other. I'm like, it's Fitz. What are you gonna do? So yeah.
See, I'm gonna be keeping an eye out for that now. I'm in the middle of Live Ship Traders, so I didn't notice.
Are you into Mad Ship?
I'm in the second book. Is that Mad Ship?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was talking about this on another live that you were on, but I probably upset you so much by saying
you didn't
that you ran away.
No,
but I'm halfway through the second book, and I'm trying to think if part of the issue is misunderstandings. I don't think so, but it's just so much trauma inflicted on our characters. Mm-hmm. Like the first book is what, 800 or 900 pages.
Yeah. And
then the second book, I soft DNF'd at page like 335.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking over 1,000 pages of just characters getting beaten down. And it gave me so much anxiety. I know that if there's a payoff, it could be really good because I'm feeling pretty strongly about these characters. But it was with everything else going on in life, I needed more of an escape. So I had to put it down so I could give Miss Hobb a fair chance.
No, that's cool. But I mean, no authors for everybody. I don't expect everybody to be as universally loving towards my favorite authors I am. But Live Ship has my favorite reveal in fiction, and the clues are there to figure it out yourself as a first-time reader. But it doesn't present itself. And some people even still don't get it until Ship of Destiny, the third book. So
I will keep going. I see, and it's interesting because I loved the Farseer trilogy. I loved being with Fitz.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel this way about that trilogy. So I want to continue in the overall series, but yeah, I got to get through this one first.
Yeah. Also, Tawny Man, if and when you get to it. I saw you got the nice UK editions. Those are sweet. The HarperCollins ones. I want those. Tawny Man is going to hit a lot harder if you have read Live Ship.
Okay.
People go straight from Farsi or Tawny Man and they're quote unquote fine, but it's one of those situations where they don't know what they're missing. Like there's stuff in there that wouldn't be nearly as impactful without Live Ship. So,
well, it's publication order always, right?
That's right.
Gotta listen to the Bald Booktuber. Resurrection, that's another one. Oh, I hate that. I feel like Resurrection is like the author had writer's block and didn't know how to get out of their situation. I feel like it's a lazy move.
Yeah, one of my least favorite books features this, and I hated that scene. The Great Coat series is what it's called. It's a quartet. I really liked the first two books. The third book was going fine, and then this reared its ugly head in a horrible way. I have seen authors that do it that I'm fine with, but the way that it was handled in that third book, I think Saint's Blood, I can't remember the name of it. I hated that book. It was one of my least favorite reads of that particular year, which I think was 2020 or 2021. I ended up liking the fourth book, but it took me months and months and months to even go back to the series to finish it. And I hate leaving series unfinished just because I hated that scene so much.
Ugh. Yeah, that sounds painful.
Yeah.
Question number 8. What fantasy world would you most want to live in?
Yeah, this is interesting too, because most of the stories that I love have pretty bleak and not necessarily places one would want to live. Not safe, not anything like that. But I think if I absolutely had to choose, I know you haven't read it yet, but the Stormlight Archive world of Roshar I find to be pretty fascinating. And I think I would be relatively safe from constant threats of death there. So that would be a worthwhile place to spend some time, I think.
Okay. I'm going to have to keep my eye out on that when I'm reading it. I'm planning to start Stormlight Archive in January. I thought it would be a great 2024 challenge. So
there are some world building things and other things he does in it. They're like, what is this? But you just got to roll with it. So it is what it is. I need to still finish up The Lost Metal. I listened to parts of it, but I never read the whole thing. I wasn't as high on Era 2 as you are. I don't dislike it, but I thought it was a big step down from Era 1, which I love. So,
I mean, it's hard to compare them, though. Mm-hmm. It's like, to me, the tones were just so vastly different.
Yeah,
that they have their own identity, and so it's hard to compare them, even though it's in the same world and it's the same magic system. I feel like the intention of Era 2 was so different.
That's true.
That depending on my mood, I would like them at different levels at different times, right? So
I do love what he does with the magic systems in Era 2. I think that is very, very cool. Some of the hybrid stuff he does, but some of the characters don't land as hard for it. Like Wax, I think, is just boring. And Wayne, if I'm in a really good mood, he can make me laugh. If I'm not in a good mood, I'm just irritated. So
that's true, but that's so true with so many different personality types. Like that, like high energy, peppy, sarcastic, could really grate on your nerves if you're feeling cranky. So I get that. I get that for sure. It's funny because I was thinking about this question and I'm like, I love dragons and fantasy. That's really cool. But do I want to live in a world where there are dragons?
Probably not.
No, absolutely not. So it's interesting to look at the different worlds we read in fantasy and think, how long would I survive in that environment?
Did you have an answer for this one? Have you answered this already? Maybe I missed your answer.
Oh, no. I don't have to answer these. These are the tough questions for you.
I know you don't have to answer it. I'm just curious.
No, I don't have an answer necessarily for this because I'm so new to the fantasy genre. I think it kind of depends because these fantasy worlds have different environments for different people, right? So if you take Mistborn, for example, for the Ska, the world isn't so great, is it? No. You know what I mean? The people without the powers. People with the powers, sure, it's pretty decent, but do you get to control which side you fall on? Even if I look at fantasy romance, which I know isn't your genre, but I do read some of it. If we look at Fae, could be kind of cool, but I don't want to be a human living in a fae world.
No.
So it kind of depends. So I look at all the worlds and it just kind of depends. So I don't have an answer yet. I need to read some more fantasy worlds. Leans into he does. I really liked it. I think it depends. So I'm very much a mood reader. The mood I'm in will impact my enjoyment of the read. And I was in a time where work was stressing me out and I had a lot going on in my personal life. And so Era 2, the humor in it was really a great escape. And so looking for a magical escape with that hard magic structure hit the spot just right. But just as Scott said, like if I was feeling cranky or like restless, if I was feeling restless in life, this probably wouldn't be the series to pick up.
At times, Wayne does make me laugh. And when I'm in the best of moods and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, when he's justifying his stealing because he'll leave a flower and he took something of actual value, like that kind of stuff, for whatever reason, I will chuckle to myself there. But then he'll start getting into long stories where he's getting jokey, and I'm like, come on, move on. This isn't working for me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. All right, question 9. What is a book on your TBR that you are most intimidated to read?
Yeah, if we would have done this a year ago, that would have been Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe, but I've read that now. So I've read the first 4 volumes of that, and that was awesome, and I got a chance to do live streams with Christopher Rocchio of Sun Eater, because that's his favorite series and most influential one outside of Lord of the Rings. So those were fun. Now, at present state, probably your favorite book is intimidating to me, Count of Monte Cristo. And I think the intimidation factor is confusion about what volume and translation, and like, I feel like I see sometimes where it's 300 pages and sometimes where it's 1,200, and I'm just confused how it could be the same book.
It's an abridged version. Yeah, you don't want to do that one.
I don't, but why? How can you... Like, how do you get the same story by abridging 75% of a book away? I don't get it. So it's just confusing to me.
Yeah.
So I need you to tell me which one to read to start with. And I need to find... I've heard that there's a very good audio narration of it. I can't remember the gentleman's name that does it, but there's supposed to be a really good audio version. So maybe that's one I would have to physically read, and I haven't physically read from a book for a while because most of my reading is Kindle, and I would have to audio it, and it feels like something where I'm going in and pressuring myself that I have to like it, and there's something wrong with me if I don't. So long answer to a short question. So
That's a good point. So it's not only the length of the book, the potential length of the book if you pick up a 1,200 page count version,
which
but
I
also
would.
the pressure, because it's much beloved and it's my favorite book of all time, and I will hunt you down if you rate it anything less than 5 stars. And I will toilet paper your house. So yeah, it is a lot of pressure. You know, I can see how it can be condensed because it does ramble at times.
Okay.
You know, this was published over the course of 2 years, and it was published like in a publication, like a newspaper or a magazine type thing. So Alexander Dumas was paid, I don't know if by the word, but like the longer he made it, the more financially beneficial it was to him, right?
Yep.
So I can see how it could be shortened, but I remember there was like a scene in Paris or something, like a masquerade ball, and they were going on for pages about the setting of this festival, and I was just like, what is the point, and why are we even here? Like, we're with different characters and I don't understand. And then when everything came together later to understand why we were there, I was like,
oh, that's cool. I like when stuff like that happens. Yeah,
so it does feel rambly at times, and it does ramble, but so much of it comes together. Hopefully it has not enough of a satisfying conclusion that you feel like it was worth it. But even if you didn't rate it 5 stars, I think you'd have a strong appreciation for the intricacy of the revenge.
I do love a good revenge story. Best Served Cold is the next Abercrombie for you to read, and it was heavily influenced. I'll just say that.
Now I'm going to pick it up. That's the first standalone?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I wasn't sure if I was going to continue, but I think you just with that statement sold me.
There's that. There's the Heroes, which is probably my favorite. It's my favorite before the final trilogy. Age of Madness, the whole trilogy, I think, is just a masterpiece all around. But the Heroes is another divisive entry where people that are not, and you may not like it because it's super leans into military fantasy, and it super leans into a couple of characters that are mentioned but are not necessarily main characters per se in the first trilogy. So I love it, but not everybody does. And then Red Country is just a straight up Western, and I like it, but it's probably my least favorite in the series.
Well, Johanna just published a video on the First Law world that was really helpful. So
I need to watch it.
My vlog with all my reactions to the First Law trilogy is coming out on Tuesday. So I'll be curious what your guidance is from there.
I don't know that my guidance matters all that much, but
well, it does. I mean, I think you really understand my reading taste because you've given me the recommendation of Lies of Lamora, and I mean, it wasn't a 5-star read for me, but you nailed what I was looking for. So, yeah, well, figure it out. All right. So what is most important to you in a book? Characters, plot, tone, world building, chemistry between characters, etc.
Yeah, I think this is why I struggle to do reviews because no matter what series or book I'm talking about, it always goes to, I love these characters because, and that just is what I'm reading for. Like in many cases, I don't know if care is the right word, but the plot is so secondary to be almost irrelevant to me. So some of these fantasy series that I love, people are like, well, what's it about? And I'm like,
I don't know.
People moving around doing stuff. I don't know what. So I'll talk about who the players are and what they're doing, but that's not a plot summary. But yeah, for sure, character is what is most vital to me to appreciating a story. I have read like some Cormac McCarthy and stuff, and one of the problems I think I have is that the characters are not the central focus. It's more theme based, and I'm too dumb for that. I need compelling people to follow. I need people that I can root for. And Blood Meridian especially, I didn't feel like I had that. And so I'm missing something reading that book where everybody's like, oh, this is a masterpiece, the best thing ever written. I'm like, I don't get it. So I like The Road a lot. And that also had like the man and his boy. Those are the characters. But it was a compelling enough story that it carried me through. So I'm not super eager to pick up more McCarthy because I just don't think he does the things that I love in a book. And maybe I need to get out of my comfort zone a little bit, but there's a reason that Robin Hobb is my favorite author. She is very, very character focused. And when people complain about nothing's happening, I'm like, well, a lot of stuff, like these characters are doing this, this, and this, but that's not a plot. I don't know what to tell you. So that's just how I read. I don't know.
Well, and it's interesting, I've heard that too, and I've said that like nothing's happening. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's boring. Like plenty of things can be happening. It can be faster paced, even but character driven. And so it's interesting to really step back and see what are the elements that contribute to that. I kind of agree with you. I always thought I was a plot driven reader, and I'm leaning more character lately. So
yeah, I need to have people to cheer for and people to boo and hiss at. If I don't have that, I'm not all that compelled. Rogue felt the same as I like. There is one central character, the judge, that I want to know more about, that I think is a compelling antagonist in some ways, but all I get is broad strokes about who he is. And again, it could be that I read the book wrong, but everybody else in there it felt like shadowed characters moving around without any personalities. And again, the fault may be with me. I'm not sure.
I don't think it's your fault. I don't think it's your fault at all. All right. So that are the 10 questions I had for you. Now you're ready for some bookish would you rather.
As ready as I'm gonna be.
I know.
Let's
See, I got my evil laugh. All right. Would you rather, number one, would you rather read at the beach or in the mountains?
Well, if they're all going to be this easy, then we should be in pretty good shape. I would always rather be at the beach. Mountains are beautiful, and I don't mind them from a distance, but I have some bad memories of my childhood driving up into the mountains, and I was when I got car sickness real bad. So I don't thankfully have motion sickness now, but I also don't love high places very much. So versus the beach where I can just relax, jump in the water if I want to, feel the sand in my toes. The beach is an easy answer for me here.
Oh, okay. See, you no reason to be intimidated. You said it was too easy.
My wife is from Manila, which is like the land of 1,000 islands or whatever they call themselves. So there's beaches everywhere. So we get to do it.
Okay. Back to the plot and character driven. Have you read Legends and Lattes, Scott?
Yeah, I liked it. I don't love it as much as many people, including yourself, do. I thought it was fine. I had a good time. I didn't have a great time. I like to have stakes. So when it represents itself as low stakes, already it's fighting an uphill battle with me. I want things to have a purpose and meaning and to leave a lasting impression on me. I liked the cook or whatever, the baker rat thing or whatever it was. That character was cool. And I liked the romance in the book. I thought that was well done. There was a lot to like about it. I would never count it among my favorites. I'm happy I read it. And I'm happy I listened to it because I thought Baldry did a really good job with the narration. But it's, I'm happy to recommend it to people if they're looking for light and easy fantasy. I wouldn't recommend it because it's something that I just thought was universally great.
I mean, there's no higher stakes than taking your life savings to become a small business owner. So I don't know what you mean by low stakes.
Fair enough.
That's kind of, the importance of having maybe a good insurance policy was in that book. And I don't know, Latina Geek Girl, we may need to go TP his house because hello. Thank you for joining. Doing good. We just started the Would You Rather questions. So we're going to see if we can make Scott sweat with this next question because he said the first one was too easy. But the next one's going to be really difficult.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
Would you rather have a book end on a cliffhanger or with the death of a main character that you love? Let's say a main character that you love.
Yeah, so this is a little bit challenging. So cliffhangers don't bother me all that much.
What?
I like having things to look forward to, which I know is weird. So I like knowing that at some point in the future there may be a resolution to the cliffhanger. I don't love them, like I don't look forward to them, but they don't bother me that much. And I also, main character deaths of characters that I love hit me hard, but they also tend to be books that I love because they stay with me for a long time. So some of the books that hurt me the worst are the ones that I love the most. That's just the way that these things work.
Ooh, what's an example? What's a book that you love that hurt you the most?
See, I don't know that I can do that without some kind of a spoiler.
Okay. Don't do that then.
I will say there is a Robin Hobb book that deeply wounded me and everybody else in the fan base for various reasons that is among my favorites. That's the extent of it.
That's enough of an indication. I'm gonna have to emotionally prepare myself to continue my Hobb journey. I'm gonna need like therapy scheduled and a bottle of wine handy and
probably. Yeah. If I had to choose between the two, would I rather? I suppose I would rather have it in a cliffhanger. If I had to do one or the other.
The main character thanks you for not killing them off.
Latina Geek Girls booing me from the crowd.
That's for Legends and Lattes.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I get it. That's all right.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I had a good time with the book, but 5 minutes after I was done with it is like time for the next thing. Like it just hasn't.
The sequel? The next thing being the sequel? Yeah, me too.
Is the sequel coming? I know he was working on it.
Yeah.
When's it supposed to be?
I want to say November, but I think I might be making that up. It's coming out soon.
Okay. I will read it. I'm not like, it's not like my anxious, I can't wait to read it, but I'll read it.
Okay. That's fair. That's all I ask. Hello. Thanks for
How's it going,
joining.
Dan?
All right. So you would rather the book end on a cliffhanger.
Yep, if I had to choose, I suppose.
Number 3, would you rather read in the daytime or the nighttime? Because you are an early morning reader, I think, is when you do most of your reading, right?
Yeah.
But what do you prefer?
Daytime. If I start reading at night, I just fall asleep, even if I'm engrossed in what's going on. So, I am blessed / cursed with being able to fall asleep very easily. So, I feel bad for people with insomnia, but I also am envious of people that seem to have boundless energy that can stay up forever. So, somewhere in the middle, I don't know. But yeah, daytime for sure, and I do love early morning reading. That's my preferred.
Okay.
I like to start my day by reading when I can.
I like natural sunlight to read, so I agree with you. Harsh. Rather kill the main character? I don't want either. This is the hardest would you rather question on the list because I don't want either. Like don't make me choose. I can't do it. I can't do it. All right, number 4. Would you rather read dual timelines or a consecutive timeline?
I'd like. So, are we talking about
Like
timelines
flashback
that are
scenes.
potentialities, or are we talking about actual things and the events are happening kind of non-linearly?
Answer however you like. Does your answer change depending?
I don't think so. I'm just curious. I guess I would say dual timelines. I think that gives more creative freedom to the author to do different things and to see different perspectives. I don't have a strong preference either way, but I do like, and I guess this goes back to our discussion about Lies of Lamora. I like when I can see how choices made and events that happened in the past can impact the present through their consequences. So I guess dual timelines.
Okay. I think we all have varying opinions on this. What would you rather have?
Shadia is a fellow Hobb mega fan, so I understand where she's coming from.
Oh yeah, that could be. Yeah, that could be good. Yeah, it's difficult for me to even answer this one. I'd say just on the surface, I prefer just one timeline going in chronological order because I could really immerse myself in it. I find it can be too choppy, and I think when you layer in multiple POVs and a dual timeline,
yeah,
too chaotic for me. But there are some cases where the flashbacks really add a lot to it. So that's a difficult answer for me even.
You probably didn't, but did you ever watch HBO's Westworld? Did you ever watch the show? So it was interesting because in the first season, they were very cryptic about it, and you felt like you were following one consecutive timeline, but they were actually showing 2 to 3 different timelines. They made it more straightforward and recognizable in the second season, but it led to some interesting theorizing and theory crafting that first season with, those of us that were watching it along. It's a show that, in my opinion, fell right off a cliff. It was, I thought, pretty good in season 1. There were some high points in season 2, and it just was almost unwatchable in season 3 and season 4 for me.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's does The Witcher do that?
I have not read or watched The Witcher or played the game.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell you. The extent to which I know about it is that the first 2 books are a series of short stories, which I would assume bounce around time-wise, and then it gets into, I don't know if it's a straight through line or what with the novels. So
Okay.
I am the wrong guy to ask. It feels like a series that wouldn't really be for me, so I haven't tried it. But enough people love it that maybe I should at some point.
Yeah, I'm reading this right now. I'm on book 2. I gotta tell you, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how to express my feelings on it without doing spoilers for those that haven't read it, but
is it a confusing narrative? I've heard that it can be hard to follow.
So there's 3 storylines, 3 different perspectives. One of them is in second person. So the whole book is not in second person.
Right.
Um,
I'm trying to understand how second person would be used. Like, of the books that I've read that have even employed second person, I would say maybe one has been successful. And that was the Revenge of the Sith novelization. So I don't, and it was like, you are Anakin Skywalker. And then it would start and tell the narrative of what it was like to be Anakin. So like, that's the only time I've seen it done. And Matthew Stover is a talented enough author that made it work, but everywhere else I'm like, it doesn't feel right to me. But I also really hate present tense, and there's books that I read that I like present tense. So
really interesting.
I hate it. It's just, to me, it's not the way that storytelling works. Like, you're not at the same time doing something as telling people what it is that you're doing. Like, that's just not, I don't know. But there's enough books that I love that employ it. But when it happens and it's a book I'm already not vibing with, I really, really hate it. So
interesting. I can barely pick that up in books. Like, it just doesn't even impact me. Like, I don't notice if it's present or past.
Yeah.
Interesting. Got True Detective season 1. How's a good timeline?
I don't know that I've watched I think I've watched individual episodes, but I don't watch enough TV that I can weigh in too much.
Westworld again.
Yeah, the challenge, without getting too spoilery with Westworld, is that death doesn't mean anything, because you've got the guests, which are human beings, and you've got the hosts, which are the robot beings. And because they're so lifelike, they can impersonate human beings. So death is really never permanent, because you can replace a human being with their likeness and personality as a robot. And so the stakes are not as high as they should be, in my opinion.
Kind of back to what we were talking about for things that we don't like in books, and the comment of resurrection. It sounds like that might be kind of similar, right?
Yeah. Jeffrey Wright is an incredible actor, and he was awesome throughout. Evan Rachel Wood, I thought, was fantastic. Tandy Newton. There are amazing performances, but it's basically just people being on a loop of behavior that never leads to anything at all. So if it's a series people are thinking about investing their time in, I would say, if you're going to try it, watch the first season and bow out, maybe.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, that is something I want to read. Tchaikovsky in general is an author I want to get to. He and Sanderson just seem to put out like 10 books a year. And so he writes like crazy, does sci-fi and fantasy. Ogres is a short novella, as I understand. I didn't know it had second person. I don't know that that's making me want to read it more, but maybe I will try it to see if it works.
Yeah, might as well try it out on a novella. What have you got to lose?
Yeah. I've heard good things about Dark. I am lazy and don't want to read my shows, so I haven't gotten around to it yet. Yeah. Robert McCammon is one of my favorite authors. Speaks to the Midnight Bird is an amazing book. One of the few books that I actually have done a review for on my channel. I am excited you're loving it. I am currently also reading the final book in the series, King of Shadows, and it's been great so far. Highly recommend this series to everyone and anyone. It is historical fiction, takes place at the turn of the century between the late 1700s, early 1800s. It is a fascinating setting, and Matthew Corbett is someone that I considered for my answer for someone that I relate to. He is the nerdy kid that likes to read. He's this problem solver, and he plays a lot of chess. So also someone that I understand their motivations. So yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Yes, and Scott does have amazing recommendations on the Bald Booktuber, so everyone should subscribe if they are not already.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I think back to timelines, I think I lean towards preferring consecutive timelines, although I recognize dual timelines can add a lot. I think what I dislike is I don't like if there is a plot twist that all the timelines are actually the same person. Like, I don't like that being used as either tell us it's all the same person, and I think that's fascinating, but don't use it as a plot twist where I'm thinking that there's different characters. So
Westworld would annoy you.
Huh? Oh, it would. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's good to know. I know
Yeah.
there was a thriller that did this, and it was a dual timeline story, and then the twist was they were actually the same character, and I'm like, well, that was dumb. I don't know why that annoys me. It's a good twist in theory. Back to what you were saying, something's probably just wrong with me on that.
No, I think it's hard to pull off in a satisfying way, because, like, if there's a reason that their identity is hidden in that fashion, it's something we have to discover. That's fine. If the author is doing it for a specific purpose, but if the purpose is just, oh, I tricked you, I don't think that's all that satisfying.
You're right. You're right. I think that would be the difference there. I don't like feeling like the author tricked me. I don't want to
Yeah.
be bamboozled. I want to be a part
Right.
of the situation. So
Christopher
Yeah.
Rocchio, the author that I love, Sun Eater, I think he says it the best. He doesn't care all that much about spoilers, and I really don't either, because an author can only have a big plot reveal twist one time. Like, that impact can only happen the first time that you read a book. So if that is the essence of what the author is trying to do, and they're just trying to get that one or more plot twists in there, it's not important to me, I guess. Like, it doesn't leave a lasting impression. I need to be able to take more of the story than that out of it. If that's all you have to tell me, then I don't know why I'm wasting my time. So
You're right. It's kind of it's being done for shock value,
right,
but without substance behind it or a buildup that makes it impactful.
right.
I can definitely see that. That's fair. All right. Are you ready for the last would you rather question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Number 5. Would you rather read in silence or with noise? So do you have background noise when you're reading?
I generally immersively read, so I almost always have the audiobook going. If I don't have either access to the audiobook or an immersive version of it, I do like to have some type of orchestral music or something going. Reading in silence I can do and have my whole life, but for whatever reason, having some sort of either ambient or like music without words is important to me. I just enjoy the experience more, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. I love having like classical. I can't have lyrics playing, but I like lo-fi hip hop music or classical or something around those lines.
So when I read Ashes of Man, the newest Sun Eater book, I didn't have the audiobook yet because it wasn't released yet when I read it. So I listened to the soundtrack of the new Batman movie, the newest Batman movie, and it was perfect.
Ooh,
really good accompaniment. Yeah.
Very atmospheric.
And when I read like one of the Terminalist books, I listened to the music from the Terminalist show, which I like that soundtrack a lot too. So I like soundtracks.
Yeah, I haven't thought of doing that. That's a great idea. Probably not the Barbie soundtrack for the Barbie movie. I think I'll probably stay away from that.
I'm gonna have to go to that, and I have no desire to do so. So I'm not looking forward to that experience, but I hope that my wife loves it because we'll be going for her and not for me. So,
are you going to wear pink?
I will not be wearing pink, but I appreciate the question. I don't think I own anything pink. Now she's probably listening in the background somewhere. I'll have a pink shirt before the day is over. So
I was just gonna say, I hope she's getting on, Amazon Prime right now, looking up men's pink shirt. Yes. I mean, you could get the Barbie logo on it. So
there are a lot of things that could happen that I hope don't. No, I'm looking forward to the movie being over and being able to get out of my chair and go to the next thing. I'm happy that it is there. I think a lot of people are going to love it. I will give it a fair chance, but it just way seems like not my thing. So, Debbie, my wife, reminds me we're watching for the novelty of it, which is not a big enough draw, but that's okay. We will be watching it. We will be watching Oppenheimer first, which I'm really looking forward to.
I bet you will be pleasantly surprised. I bet you'll chuckle a couple times. It will be entertaining. I hear it's like made for everybody, like adults and kids. I love that kind of humor. So
I'm kind of not happy it's PG-13 because it feels like it's a movie that should appeal to younger kids too. But they didn't consult me when rating it or putting in the content. So
I'm going to need an update after you see it because I'm curious. I hope you eat your words and you really enjoy it.
We went to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 last night at IMAX, and that was fantastic. So that is my kind of
trade-off. This is a fair trade-off, I think. Mission Impossible and Barbie, I think, yeah.
I mean, it's not even a trade-off. She liked it. She had a good time in Mission Impossible.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, it's hard to get me to go to a movie, but I do want to see the new Indiana Jones.
We saw it. I'll keep my thoughts to myself. All right.
Wow, that doesn't sound positive. You know, if he loved it, he would have told me, right, guys? Like, he would have told me he didn't like it. Man, all right.
I think it will appeal to people that like to see a broken down, used up, wants to kill himself Indiana Jones.
Oh, that's
I don't
horrible.
belong to the demographic of watchers. I'll just say that.
Neither do I, man. Okay, way to kill my enjoyment, Scott.
I'm not trying to do that.
Stay home and read a book.
I really hope you enjoy it. I do not particularly like Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I don't have anything against her as a person. She annoys me, and I don't know why. So
that makes sense. I do. I feel that way too. See, it's so nostalgic.
I did enjoy the first 15 minutes where they de-aged him and they put him on. The first 15 minutes.
Oh man. Oh, you're not part of that demographic. I don't think anybody's part of that demographic the way he's pitching it. But don't do movie reviews. That's all I gotta say, Scott. Stick to the book review.
I mean, if you watch the teaser trailer, that's
the movie.
It shows you what you're gonna see. So
that's fair. I mean, I like the original 3 anyways. So I don't like this trend of like remaking things or adding on new things when I feel like it could have been closed out and lived on its own. But again, nobody asked me. Hollywood did not call me. So
well, for good or bad, we're not going to be watching much movies in the next few years anyway with the striking and everything else. So it's going to be a while before new stuff gets made. So
good for them, though.
Yeah, we'll see.
On strike. So, all right. Well, those are all the questions. Thank you, Scott, with the Bald Booktuber coming on a live show and going through these hard-hitting questions about your bookish favorites and your habits. Really fun to learn more about you and how you experience reading and some of your favorite books and things in books. So thank you very much. And anybody that's watching this interview, if you have not yet subscribed to the Bald Booktuber, definitely do. And hopefully we'll see a Steinbeck book review video because since you don't read a lot of classics, I'm interested to see a fantasy reader's take on Steinbeck. So I would love to see that.
I will do my best to come up with something worthwhile. Hey, my boss is here. What's up, Andy?
Hey, Andy.
Good stuff.
Yeah, good. Hopefully he missed the whole part we were, trashing his boss and everything. Kind of embarrassing that he shows up.
That part did get a little contentious. So
yeah, that was a little spicy. There were comments and all right. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. Please be sure you are subscribed, and we will catch you the next episode of the Biblio Files. Bye.
Bye, everybody.